Welcome everyone to Buddhist Center. So wonderful to see all of you this evening. And we know that all the great masters say there's really two important things that we do whenever there's a teaching, whenever we do practice, and that's beginning with a proper motivation and ending with a proper dedication. And we find this in, the Lam Rim works, we find this in Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand. And, someone once asked Pabonka Rinpoche if he could maybe shorten the preliminary prayers and just get to the teaching. And he found this such a curious question. And he said that, if we don't do the preliminaries properly, then nothing else could possibly go right from wherever we began, because we hadn't properly set the teaching up with the proper preliminaries. So now from my side, I'll recite a verse from the King of Aspiration prayers to set my motivation to be able to invite all sentient beings here to listen to this teaching, and for them to be able to hear this teaching in their own individual languages. This is an aspiration that I'm making. I can't, produce that kind of language right now. But when I achieve Buddhahood, I will be able to produce that kind of language, and I'll be able to connect with every single sentient being in the universe and help them in relation to their own individual aptitudes. And in order to do so, I will need to be able to speak in all their own individual languages. And this is what the Buddha can do. The Buddha can, if asked a question by every sentient being in the world at once, the Buddha can then say one statement and it will answer all of their individual questions in their own individual languages simultaneously without having to utter a whole lot of different things. So it's a quality of the Buddha's speech that we will eventually have when we become Buddhas, because all sentient beings will become Buddhas. We have Buddha nature. We have this mind that can evolve to the state of perfection once we do what's necessary to make that evolution, that maturation from imperfect to perfection take place. So let me begin with this prayer, and then we'll go from there with setting more proper motivation for the teaching. Laike dan le dan na jin ye zhu bun da dan mi yi ge nan dan zhou wa gun ji zhan nan ji zang ba dan jie ge du da ji zhi den do. In the language of the gods, Nagas, and Yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. So now you as well set this motivation to really become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. You're here tonight to get rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. And we know that in order to do that, we have to engage in a path that leads to Buddhahood, the Bodhisattva path, where we learn to put others' needs before our own so that we can fulfill our needs and all sentient beings' needs. So we begin to try to make our minds align with what they'll eventually always be like by setting these kind of conditions up in our minds now, leaving imprints in our minds now to be able to connect with all sentient beings, to be able to teach all sentient beings, to be able to lead all sentient beings to the state of Buddhahood. We now will, at you now as individuals, because I've already done so, imagine that you bring as your guest all sentient beings here from your side as a student, imagining that you're leading them in prayer. You've led them here, and you know that it's a good place to lead them because the teacher is teaching in every language that there is in the universe, and that there's this kind of idea that in your mind, you can only speak for your motivation, but you're hoping that my motivation is truly to be able to teach the truth of suchness through the stages of the path to enlightenment to all sentient beings. So you imagine now you've invited them here, and it makes sense to have invited them here because it's something that every one of them can participate in because they can understand it. And not only can they understand it, it's geared, if the speech is blessed, when the Buddha speaks, it's geared to their own individual aptitude. So this is something that when we're at a teaching, we're imagining, not that I'm proclaiming to have any of these qualities to be able to do this. I've already told you that I don't have these qualities. I'm imagining that I have these qualities. And then you imagine this same thing so that you imagine you're bringing these sentient beings somewhere that makes sense to bring them. So this is kind of what we're doing when, the teacher makes these aspirations and the students bring all sentient beings here: hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods. When you're in your mind imagining every being, sentient being in the universe, any being that has afflictive obstructions or obstructions to omniscience, imagining, and or obstructions to omniscience, imagining you're bringing every one of them here, but you've contemplated whether this makes sense or not. You're not just doing it just haphazardly. You're saying, I'm bringing them here somewhere that they can hear the exact stages that they'll individually need to hear in order to become Buddhas, because there's nothing we should settle for less than Buddhahood. And the only way that we can become Buddhas is to engage in all of the stages of the path for beings of three capacities. And we know that that's the material that's being presented tonight in all their individual languages. And within the context of those three capacities, all of their individual scopes, or those things which will make the small scope start to occur. And then the medium scope occur, and then the great scope occur, because we know that their teaching shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, because the great scope needs them as their foundation. But it's all contained. All of the pathways are contained within the Lam Rim. So this is a reliable place. So imagine now that you, because you want to leave seeds, you want to leave imprints in your mind of this intention to help every sentient being in the universe so that you can become a bodhisattva quicker, so that you can really align with the thing that is the only entrance to the Mahayana, and that's bodhicitta. You can really, truly start to make your mind, because hopefully in your daily practice, you've meditated on things like the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. You've meditated on equalizing and exchanging self with others. You've meditated on that kind of foundational precept we talk about in the Lam Rim of equanimity, of seeing this, bringing your mind to a place to be equally willing, just open-minded enough, willing to benefit beings, whether they're friends, strangers, or enemies. So if you familiarized your mind with this kind of practice, then doing this bringing of the sentient beings here makes sense, because in the 7-point cause and effect, you've said, I'm taking it upon myself the task of paying their kindness. And I'm taking it upon myself the task of bringing them to happiness, of freedom from suffering. I'm going to take it upon myself this task of doing this myself. And then you realize you must become a Buddha to do that. But the way you become a Buddha to do that is you begin acting in the ways that the holy ones act, so that you become a holy one. So we do this now. We meditate with sincerity and really try to have, even if it's contrived, make it less and less contrived, because your analysis, your meditation, your meditative analysis should start to chop away at the contrived nature of this practice that we're doing. You should be using your analytical meditation to think about the benefits of generating the mind that aspires to enlightenment, the downfalls of self-cherishing, the benefits of cherishing others. You're using these points in the beginning of Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and all of these points that are made in the various texts about bodhicitta, about developing love and compassion, to convince you more and more and more that it makes sense to generate it, so that the contrived state starts to turn into just how your mind works, because you've convinced your mind that it should work that way. So this aspiration goes from a contrived aspiration to a true aspiration to be able to achieve bodhicitta, to the big aspiration to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, that you have day and night, that has as its foundation this day and night wanting to seek transcendent liberation, which has both of these as their foundation. What we're going to talk about tonight, this single pointed concentration, a very, very calm mind, where you actually could, in each of those moments, seek transcendent liberation. In each of those moments, actually want to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Without a very, very calm mind, there's really, really no way to have those higher states of being that we just kind of talk about and very loosely, as if they're not something that are just holy treasures that we have to seek and go through all kinds of trials and tribulations and analysis and meditation to be able to achieve. So when we think of day and night doing something, that means our mind is on it. Our mind is really, really on it. So this is why we have to not only make our mind really, really smart through analysis and get to this special insight, but in order for it really, really to be effective, the wisdom, it has to be kind of coupled with a calm mind. And the calmer our mind becomes, the better in each moment we can take care of business. We can take care of seeing things as not objectively existent, not inherently existent, things as not existing right in the object. And in each moment, while we're in each moment engaging in the conventional activities, engaging in the, generosity and ethics and patience and effort and so forth. So we see how even though those are the first four perfections of the six, and then we get, to the fifth of meditative concentration and then the sixth of wisdom, we see that fifth concentration works backwards and forwards. Concentration obviously is going to make you have more effort, going to make you have better patience, going to make you have better ethics, generosity, all of these things you'll be able to be in the moment with a calmer mind. But then this calm mind that you achieve through a lot of stages we're going to talk about probably for the next year, if I would guess. These stages are very subtle. We're going to look at stages of meditation, Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise, and we're going to look at liberation in the palm of your hand for this section. That's what we're going to do. And we may look at Asanga's text as well, because Lama Tsongkhapa brings it up, middle beyond extremes. I believe that's what Lama Tsongkhapa is bringing up. So we're going to look at it in this way, because it's so important that, with a distracted mind, nothing can really get done, Shantideva says. With this distracted mind, you can do things, you can be generous, you can do all, try and be ethical, but you can't really, really do it if you can't in the moment be so kind of mindful and really in the moment, looking at what you're supposed to do, and do that, and what you're not supposed to do and not do that in every moment. Just think about how, if you really right now, your motivation, okay, we're thinking of spiritual things, we're thinking of these kind of big ideas of wanting to become a Buddha, how we would develop this, and, having our minds warmed by love and compassion and bringing sentient beings here. Imagine if we could hold on to that every moment. If you had a glimpse of something that was special at all, or you get a glimpse of something that's special in relation to spiritual practice and connectivity to sentient beings, in relation to understanding emptiness a little bit in an intellectual way, then anyway, I lost my train of thought, but then that is this is how you will be able to evolve. So anyway, we're going to look at this in a way that will allow us to see how you can have this connectivity in every moment through a calm mind. That's the point I was trying to make. So if I had that, calm abiding, if I had that ability to focus my mind exactly how I'd want to, I wouldn't have just lost my train of thought. So here is just a really clear point that we can see. Me as a teacher, I'm trying to convey something. My motivation is to convey it, in such a clear and concise way. But then if I lose my train of thought, then I'm having a break in what I'm trying to present to you. So this is a problem. So that means that there needs to be some sort of refinement. There's a sign. We use our life as a sign to know where we're at, what we need to do. We should be doing this at all times. And here there's just an example of me just catching it. Oh, there's a sign that I don't have shamatha. I'm trying to do something that I want to do, and I can't do it because my mind's not calm enough. So this is just how we use the Dharma in our daily life. So now imagine you've brought all sentient beings here as your guest to try to start to have your mind be more like a bodhisattva's mind. If you're already a bodhisattva, then you know already how to do this. You're good at this. But I'm not a bodhisattva, so I have to, on a daily basis, kind of practice this. And as I said, use reasons why I should practice this, and then it becomes uncontrived more and more and more, to the point where it's completely uncontrived and it's actually bodhicitta. And this is really the goal. So let's start to try to get ours and all sentient beings' minds calmed down enough to be able to engage in this practice, to be able to hear the stages of practice that lead to that state of complete Buddhahood, where there are no negativities and there are only excellent qualities. So let's try to get our minds to a calmer place, the way that we always do, by focusing on the breath in and out and counting of the breath, and then also focusing on a front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni about an arm length away, thumb size, which is about 2 inches, inch and a half, about eye height, and imagining Buddha Shakyamuni however you normally would, beautiful and radiant, but static in a fixed position, not animated in any way. So just for anybody who's new, we get into the 7-point Vairakana posture in order to set our physical posture in a way that sets up a good foundation, according to the past meditation masters, for our mind to be able to engage in virtuous practice, our mind to be able to get as clear and brilliantly stable as possible. So we're in the 7-point Vairakana posture. We'll focus on the breath, the breathing in and out, and the counting in the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni. And again, we're imagining that we're leading all sentient beings in this when we're kind of back at external objects. But this meditation that we're doing, we're trying to focus on our internal objects of observation. So we shouldn't be then thinking, in this particular case, if we've told our mind what to do, I'm just want to give some more instruction. If we've told our mind what to do, it's breathing in and out and counting and focus on Buddha Shakyamuni, then this is all our mind should be focusing on. And if this is what we've told our minds to do. Now, when we're doing this specific thing, if our mind turns to the sentient being that we've led here next to us, then our mind is not focused on the breathing in and out and the counting in Buddha Shakyamuni. So fixed meditation means just that. We're fixing on something specifically. So when we're telling our minds what to do, now, okay, we're imagining, all right, now the instructor Jeff has told all sentient beings to say, my mind, do this. So now we just go into our individual mind and do this. So just to make clear around the instructions that we're giving in order to know how to achieve, the goals that we're trying to achieve. So we're going to only allow our minds to focus on the breathing in and out, counting in Buddha Shakyamuni. If we start to see any obstacles to our meditation arise, which are in 2 divisions, we can see a mind that gets kind of busy, distracted, excited. That's an opponent to our kind of fixed meditation. That's an enemy. And then there's another one that's just kind of sleepy and dull, lethargic, almost like becoming sleepier and sleepier, and the object isn't clear and bright. So the object, if your mind's all over the place, the object's not stable that you're trying to focus on. If your mind's moving over to sentient beings, moving over to even emptiness, moving off of the thing you've told your mind what to do, even if it's a virtuous object, is distraction, can be excitement, can be scattering of the mind. So you don't want that because you told your mind what to do. And the other thing that can happen is you're doing this breathing in and out and the counting, and you start to become kind of too comfortably relaxed, and it almost hypnotizes you. And this is something that this sleepy, subtle laxity, dullness is something that is less noticeable than excitement. So once you get the excitement under control, it says in the texts that you then have to deal with this lack of clarity on the object, on the focal object. And we'll get more into this, but so these are these two obstacles to your fixed meditation, to your eventual achieving of shamatha, are these two things that are no good. You don't want it to be dark. You want it to be brilliant and bright. You don't want it to be unstable. You want it to be, stable and brilliantly bright. So these are two enemies to that, that you have this kind of spy in your mind we call introspection that's looking out for, because mindfulness is not forgetting the object. And mindfulness is, don't forget, breathing in and out, counting Buddha Shakyamuni. And if introspection sees that there's something that's a problem for that occurring, this single pointed kind of focus occurring, if introspection catches that, then it sets off like a ringer, and mindfulness brings back the object. Don't make ringing, but it sets off like a subtle cue for mindfulness to bring back the focal object. So these are just some slight instructions. We are in the Union of Calm Abiding and Special Insight section in the Source of All My Good. So it's good to just talk about this a little bit. So let's do this breathing meditation just for a moment. We're so fortunate to be here this evening, listening to this teaching, hearing the holy words of Lama Tsongkhapa, the source of all my good, foundation of all good qualities, begging for a mountain of blessings. We're so fortunate that we've just for a moment loosened our minds a bit from the self-cherishing attitude. It's so hard for us to share. It's so hard for us to be generous. When we have something that's so special and precious to us, we don't want to share it. So this idea of bringing all sentient beings here to share this precious gift that we have, that's so rare, goes against our natural grain. And this going against this natural grain, which causes all of our problems, which is the self-cherishing attitude, allows us to start to mature. So today we've taken some steps to kind of loosen our selfishness. Normally we would never share our most prized thing with everyone. We would leave it in a safe. We would lock it in a vault, and we would make sure that it was protected. Some people have armed guards around things like this. But tonight we're going against the actual tendency that we normally have to cherish ourselves more than others. And we're sharing this gift because we know that the bodhisattvas must do this, must put others' needs before their own, must love all beings, must have compassion for all beings in order to become a Buddha. And we're starting to kind of loosen our clinging to that which keeps us from being bodhisattvas. Just really just take a deep breath and have a sigh of relief that we've loosened this self-cherishing attitude just a bit by sharing these teachings with all sentient beings. Sharing the most precious thing we have in our lives. And as we study the teachings and think about the benefits of the teachings, we come to know this is the most precious thing that we have, more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. And we're sharing this with everyone, all beings who aren't enlightened in the highest degree of Buddhahood. Now imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni becomes completely animated and looks into our eyes and so happy, those eyes full of love and compassion, just so proud that we're here tonight engaging in the stages of the path to enlightenment. He's feeling, oh, job well done. Someone was listening because I came to this world to show everyone how to be free from suffering and how to achieve complete bliss and become the most reliable guides in the universe, because I did it. And I want to show everyone how to do it. And this Buddha, who only has one thing in mind for us, and that's to become Buddhas, is seeing us do what we need to do to become Buddhas. So just imagine, that Buddha Shakyamuni just is now so animated and begins to almost erupt. You see almost like a shaking. Buddha Shakyamuni is animated, and you see almost a shaking take place. And this bliss is causing this shaking. It's not bad shaking. It's the blissful shaking. Buddha Shakyamuni is just so full of bliss. And now imagine that the entire merit field explodes from that bliss into the space in front of you. Imagining all the enlightened beings, any of those beings that you consider holy enlightened beings, imagining His Holiness the Dalai Lama on a very stable throne, supported by 8 snow lions, on this Vajra throne. Imagine he's there, so happy, looking into your eyes. The Buddha of compassion looking into your eyes. We're so fortunate he's in our world. Imagining Khensur Geshe Wandak. We remember him so well, many of us. And I just smile when I bring Khensur Rinpoche to mind. I smile, kind of no matter what period of time I'm thinking about, even in the end days. I get to, even if it starts with tear, I get to smile because I just know that I'm trying the best that I can to carry out what his wishes and to engage in the practices that he taught me. I'm really trying the best that I can. I fail miserably at times, but I'm really, really trying the best that I can to do this. And I land there when I bring to mind Rinpoche, who's inseparable from Aryatara, many, 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 many times a day. And I see that smile, that happiness, and that encouragement in the eyes of my Lama that was always there and will always be there. Although now sitting on a lotus, unfortunately, instead of a throne. Imagining beings, holy beings such as Geshe Lobsang Gompo, Khenso Lobsang Gyatso, Dema Locha Rinpoche, imagining Geshe Dorje Damdu, Umzula Geshe Aga, Geshe Mela Tenzin Ladrin La, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Chado Rinpoche, Jeffrey Hopkins, all of these holy beings. Any being that you consider a holy being, imagine these beings in the space in front of you. Imagining the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Basu Bandhu and Dharmakirti and Dignaga and Vimuktasena and Haribhadra and Gunaprabha and Shakyaprabha and Lama Salimpa and Atisha, and imagining all the holy beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Aryadeva and Chandrakirti and Shantideva and Chandrashita and Baba Vega and Kamala Shila. And again, imagining Lama Salimpa and Lord Atisha, all of these holy beings. Atisha was so kind to combine these lineages into a way, into a practice that we can engage in so that we can see the entire overview of the path in terms of grounds and paths and the emptiness of those grounds and paths of inherent existence. We're so fortunate to have the combination of these lineages put together, the profound view and the extensive deeds lineage in a clear and concise way because of the kindness of beings like Lord Atisha. Imagining the beings of the lineage of blessings passed down from Vajradhara to Saraha and Matripa and Tilopa and Naropa and Losawa Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa. Imagining the holy beings are there, just right there in the space in front of you, real beings, because these beings are here when we call them. We just don't have the karma to see them. So just imagine that you do. Don't imagine just a flat picture. Imagine these beings are actually here in the space in front of you. Now imagining Atisha is passing the Lamrim lineage down to Drontompa. I'm so fortunate that happened. Imagining all of the old Kadampa lineage, the 3 old Kadampa lineages, imagining all the beings of the holy lineages of the Tibet, the lineage of Nyingma, imagining beings Padmasambhava and so forth, Longchenpa, imagining the holy beings of the Sakya lineage, Sakya Kunga Nimpo and Sakya Pandita, imagining holy beings, the Kaji lineage, the Karmapas, and so forth, imagining holy beings, a global lineage, Jetsun Kappa, Lama Tsongkhapa were so fortunate, Losang Drapa, who came to this world and clarified the teachings, really made it clear how to practice this union of calm abiding and special insight. That incredible section at the end of the Lam Rinpoche that so many great beings have relied upon to become Aryas. We're so fortunate that we have this same text to be able to study by Lama Tsongkhapa. And we have commentaries by these great beings such as Kirtupje and Jelsupje and Panchen Sanandrapa and Jayan Sheba and Basu Chuchi Jetson and Jayan Rupi George and Gonju Jimmy Wampo and the seventh Dalai Lama and Purbajo and Jetsumbo. We have all of these holy beings to rely upon to understand Lama Tsongkhapa's work, to understand the Nalanda Master's work, to understand Buddha Shakyamuni's work at the end of the day, because all of these holy beings are here, came into this world to help us understand the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, the sutra pronouncements, the tantra pronouncements of Lord Buddha. We're so fortunate that these pandits have come here, the Indian pandits, the Tibetan pandits have come here to share this with us, and we're so connected to these beings because all of the teachings that we hear come from this holy lineage. These holy beings have extracted the meanings and sometimes of each word of a text for us to be able to easily, and I say easily because how difficult would it be if we only had a sutra or only had some tantra to try to figure out our own, easily achieve our goal of complete Buddhahood. We're so fortunate to have these holy beings that we're so connected to. So now imagine the beings of also now the extensive, the beings of the highest Yoga Tantra, Performance Tantra, and Action Tantra, all the 35 Buddhas, imagining all of the protector deities now in the space in front of us. So now we have all sentient beings here, even those beings on the 10th Bodhisattva ground who just have like a little bit of problem left in terms of obstructions to omniscience, no longer have afflictive obstructions, but you imagine that all of them are here in order to hear exactly what they need to hear in order to be able to move along the path, whomever those beings are in their own individual cases, to get closer to Buddhahood because they're here tonight. So you have all sentient beings here, and then beings who aren't sentient beings are Buddhas. So they're all here. So you have the enlightened beings now here, and you have all sentient beings here. So welcome, everyone. And now, we'll read just a little bit from Jeffrey Hopkins' incredible text, Meditation on Emptiness, because before we read the Heart Sutra, we need to establish really what it is that the Heart Sutra is talking about. What is the object of negation? What is the problem with the way that we see there's a problem with something?
Turn Jeff down, because
if everybody could just mute that, thank you. So there's a problem, according to Buddha, that we have in our thinking. So we have to determine what the problem is. And then, we look at the Heart Sutra, which, in the Prasangika tradition is the definitive teaching. Any teaching that's on emptiness is the definitive teaching. We have to see, okay, so the Heart Sutra is saying that reality exists in a way where there is no inherent existence in terms of any phenomena, that there's no phenomena, self of person or self of phenomena. There's nothing in the universe that exists that isn't empty of inherent existence. If it is a dependent arising, then it's empty of inherent existence. So we have to see if that's how we think. Is this how we normally think? Do we think that the things ourselves and, self of persons and then self of phenomena, all the other stuff that isn't person, do we think that those two categories of stuff exist inherently or not? Do we think that these things exist right within the object? Is the self exist right within the object, intrinsically, inherently, of person? Does it exist within the self of phenomena, right within the object, inherently existent, intrinsically? Is there something where there's a 50-50 relationship? These are questions we have to ask. Is it merely subjective? If it's merely subjective, is there externality? Or is it only mind? Is everything that is impermanent, just all these things around us, just the nature of the mind? There's nothing external. It appears to be, but is it just all in the mind? So it would subjectively mean that it could be, it's just the mind, there's nothing external. So these are all things that the tenet systems, when we look at the Buddhist tenets of the Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Chittamantra, and Madhyamaka, these are all things that are questioned. So, okay, self of person. Does the self of person, have some sort of autonomous substantial reality? This is the beginning of investigation. And then it moves on to say, okay, well, what about, okay, I can understand that, there's some subjectivity in terms of how I relate to objects. But the objects have some, true inherent nature from their own side. Buddhism starts with investigating the person and saying, oh, it's just how I'm this person that doesn't exist autonomously, substantially, thinks that I do. And so then I relate to my external world, and then this grasping at this person then causes me to, feel certain ways about external objects, but they don't go to the external objects initially. Then they get a little higher into the views of the mind only and say, no, we've got to look at external objects too. We've got to look at, phenomena other than just the self of person too. And not only is there this subjectivity in terms of, our relationship with these things out there, there's nothing out there. It's just subjectivity. It's just the mind. It's just these imprints. It's this kind of storehouse of mind. And it's just creating this external world feeling. And there's no external world in the mind only, they feel. And then the Madhyamaka comes around and says, well, that's not true. There is externality, but it's all subjective. When you get to Prasangika, this Svatantrika gets into a 50-50 subject-object. But when you get to Prasangika, it's all subjectivity, but there is externality. So we have to see how we can get to these ideas, and we get there through analysis. We get there through varieties of reasons and understandings, and trying to come up with whether or not the I abides through mere designation, the way that the Buddha says. Because we're starting with this idea from the Heart Sutra that the I is not inherent. The eye, ear, nose, all this stuff is not inherently existent. So when we read the Heart Sutra, it's not telling us a lot more than the conclusion. So for us to actually conclude that, we have to come up with all of these reasons in our mind, and then our actual direct perception of it substantiates our reasons at the end of the day. But these reasons are what lead us to the direct perception that says, oh yeah, this is something I've never seen before, and all those reasons were right. It's like you have to have these reasons, though. These reasons and analysis is what leads you to the conclusion in the Heart Sutra. So we need them all. And we need to start with how we really feel about stuff. We have to really look at, how do I feel about this, me, Jeff, I, self of person, I and mine. The I and this mind that says, mine we normally think of as the object, but the mine is mine. I mine, and then mine has an object. Mine is the self of person in certain texts. I like that version. This mine, grasping at I and mine. This grasping at I, mine, this mind consciousness allows for me to think that shoe over there, I own it. This mind self, this mind, not the shoe mind, not the shoe that's mine, but the mind that sets up this kind of deal with the shoe that makes me believe that I own it somehow. But it's this consciousness of mine that sets up this opportunity for me to think I own the shoe. So it's pretty wild when we start to investigate self of person, this, in the view of the transitory collection, this view of this I and mine. What is this I? What is this mine? What are we talking about? Is mine the my, or is it, so we have to really investigate this. My hand is mine. What is this? What is this? The hand, the mind is this idea, of this object, this idea that fuels that thing out there is something that the self can possess. So this self, this mind, very interesting to look at mind like that. And I just recently have been looking at it like that. In a kind of different, more subtle way, or maybe it's gross to, and I've been looking at it very, very, even not even beginning yet, right? But anyway, so what we were talking about first, establishing how we really feel about phenomena, self of person, self of phenomena. How do we feel about these things? And I feel when I think about it, and I just calm my mind down enough and just try to dwell in the awareness of just being. I hate to talk like that, but just dwell in, I think what I mean, dwell in the awareness of just kind of being, that was like the whole path for like an entire generation. All right. So just bum. So we try to just dwell in this kind of awareness of how this I naturally occurs, because we have to start somewhere, and we're so close to me. I'm very close to me. It's real easy for it to come up. So we just kind of naturally see how it's kind of coming up and how it naturally abides. When we look at a shoe, we start to think my shoe. It's too hard for this natural thing to come up. It's harder to do it on an object other than the self. It's very easy because our mind is right here. It's like Geshe Dorje Namju says, empirical reality that we can just work with. We just work with it. Anytime we want, we can work with it. So we see, how is this occurring? What's occurring? Do I appear as kind of like this kind of whole thing? This is me. This is Jeff. Yes. Definitely. Right from my toes to the top of my head. As soon as I talk, that's Jeff. Everything, all this whole package to me, in its natural way of coming up, seems like Jeff. Until I start to talk to you about it. And then now it's like I start to kind of think there's something I can separate, and there's something distinct that. But then I'm like, well, what's the distinct part? And then I start to get clumsy. Wait. Then I just forget it. Just forget it. But that's not the way to go about it. Just because it doesn't. The reason you start to get that feeling of just forget it is because you have this self-grasping ignorance that's being challenged all of a sudden. This natural way that everything appears and that you apprehend everything is being challenged all of a sudden. So it wants you to not challenge it, not like it's a person, but just think if you've been like this way you've always thought your whole life, I'm just closed-minded, that kind of person. And then you start going, no, you should really have a more open mind. Your mind's like that. Don't tell me anything. I know everything's right. It appears this way. It's that dumb. This is stupid mind. It's so closed-minded and so unopen. Even though we think we're open-minded, our mind isn't. We think it is, our mind's not. We just have this like shell around inherent existence that we are not willing to punch holes in at all. It becomes very uncomfortable, and it's like, I got to do the dishes. I need to do something that I've been putting off for 2 years, and now it's suddenly important that I do it right now, because the I has suddenly, taken over and said, Jeff, you really should be doing something else. How many times are you trying to meditate? And all of a sudden it's like, Jeff, don't forget, you got to get on that thing. And it's like, well, you didn't even think about that the last 24 hours. What is going on here? Just, always try to push through. And if you can't push through, apply the antidote. So this I seems like it inherently exists. So if this inherently exists right in the object, if I'm right here and if I'm right here and I should be findable, if there's a solid I that's right here. That's our house guest, by the way. I don't know if we need to do anything, but if I'm right here, that just called, if I'm right here, then I should be findable. If I objectively exist, if I've got this self that's, findable, this self of person that inherently exists, that isn't just some dependent origination that we come to the conclusion of. If it's there, we should be able to find it. So does it exist within the aggregates, mental and physical parts that make us up, or is something separate? So we have to start to try and investigate that. There are a lot of ways to investigate it, and we can see the various types of emptiness that we use, that we can, I think she's fine, the various types of emptiness to understand, so that we start to knock down this misconception that occurs all the time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So in order to undo somebody's kind of closed mind, imagine you're trying to convince somebody who's very, very closed-minded of something. You've got to have a lot of reasons, and maybe one of them's going to stick. This is really it. Or maybe all of them will stick. Maybe it's the first one, maybe it's the 20th one. But you're going to need a variety of reasons if you're going to open mind. And you never know which one is going to start to pry it. So you use a lot of different kinds of analysis to try to find that pry bar that starts to make it be doubt about inherent existence all the time, that shakes, that tears samsara to bits, that shakes samsara. So you have to use all this analysis and reasoning and apply it all day, if you can, or when you can, thinking about it. Oh, does that object over there exist in its parts, or something separate from its parts? But you start with this I, and then you because there's a collection here. There are aggregates here, 5 aggregates here, that there's, either you're going to find the I within it inherently there, or you're going to find it separately. So the 7-point analysis of the chariot sometimes can be used on the I. So we went over the 7. It's that if the I inherently exists, it would have to be one with the aggregate. It would have to be, one with the aggregates, or being something other than the aggregates, being the base of the aggregates, or not being inherent. Let's just go through them in the order. The I, we're establishing that the I is not the mind and the body. So it's not one with the aggregates. We're establishing that the I is not different from the mind and the body, is not separate from the mental and physical aggregates. We're then establishing that the I is not the base, kind of the container, like a bowl that holds yogurt of the aggregates. The I isn't this kind of thing. We're not we're establishing that the mind and body aren't the base of the I. We're establishing that the I does not inherently possess mind and body, like a possessor, an owner, an inherent possessor or owner of this thing. establishing that the I is not the composite of the mind and body. Like there's an inherently existent I that's just this composite of mind and body, and then establishing that the I is not the shape of the mind and the body. So we've gone over that, establishing that the I is not mind and body. We've gone over various reasons for that. And then now we're going to establish that the I is not different from the mind and body. The I is not an entity other than mind and body, because if it were, the I would not have the character of the aggregates, such as production, disintegration, abiding, form, experiencing, and realizing objects. Okay, so we're realizing this I that's experiencing the world is experiencing it through these aggregates. This I is aging. Jeff isn't 1 year old. I don't think I'm 1 year old at all. Even though maybe I act like a toddler sometimes. I don't think I'm 1 year old. Jeff doesn't think that. There's some correlation there there's an experience that's going on. The I is not a separate entity from the mental and physical aggregates, because if it were, there would be no basis for the designation of I. So when we think about, is the I, in terms of the form aggregate, the feeling aggregate, the discrimination, the compositional factors, consciousness, is it any of those 5 aggregates? Form, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness in our Heart Sutra. Is it any among those? When you start to say, is the I this, is the I that, is the I this, is the I that, we can't really land on that it is. So we're established that it's not the mind and body, but then we can't find it without it. Without the aggregates, we can't find the I, because there's nothing for this I to be designated on. There's no collection there. There's no aggregates there. Where is this I? If there's no consciousness, if there's no form, where would this findable I be? So then we get back to this place that we don't find it in these parts, but we don't find it outside of these parts, because it can't be found outside of the parts without the parts. So it says, because of this, there would be no basis for the designation I. The I would be a non-product, and non-products are changeless, whereas the I obviously changes. So we just talked about that. The I is changing moment by moment. We're aging in terms of our I, Jeff, because the I is just designated on the parts. And that's how in our future life, I'm going to think I'm someone else. Designated, the I is going to be another name altogether, but it'll still be I. But that I is going to require me to be, this is me. And this is me is going to require among the 5 aggregates. The I is not a separate entity from the aggregates, because if it were, there would be no object to be apprehended as I. The I would be a non-product like nirvana, or a non-existent like a flower in the sky. The I is not a separate entity from the aggregates, because if it were, the I would be apprehendable apart from the aggregates, just as the character of form is apprehendable, separate form from the character of consciousness, but it is not. So we see that there's no way that we can find a separate entity of I from the aggregates. We can have a separate isolate, but we can't, when we try to find the I, there's no I that when we look at the entity of I, we have all of the physical and mental aggregates. When we look at, this I, and in the Prasangika view, it's just a mere designation on a basis of designation of the aggregates. It's not the aggregates. It's not the consciousness. It's just a mere designation, a thought designation on this basis of designation, the 5 aggregates. So it's just a mere labeling, is what we would say. This Heart Sutra isn't talking about this I doesn't exist. The Heart Sutra is saying that when we say I know it talks about this I in the Heart Sutra too. But when it says that that this I doesn't, the way that the I, there is no I, it's meaning that there's no inherently existent I. There's just an I that's a mere designation by thought consciousness. And this is how it exists. This is its mode of existence. This is the I's per self of person's mode of existence, mere thought designation on a collection of aggregates. That chair's mode of existence is mere thought designation on a collection of parts that serve as a basis of designation for the label chair. My thought consciousness, my thought, this designating thought consciousness labels as a chair to sit in. But for an ant, there would be maybe a different label for the same collection in their mind. It wouldn't seem like a comfortable thing for an ant to sit back on, because their thought consciousness would designate it perhaps as, a mountain, or who knows, I'm not an ant. But think about it in these terms, how subjectively we interact with our environment. So the Buddha said that we've got to figure this out, and that the fact that we think that there is an self of person, or an eye consciousness, or an ear consciousness, or a nose consciousness, or a tongue consciousness, or a tactile consciousness, or a mental consciousness that inherently exists, by thinking that there is one that inherently exists, is the problem. And by realizing that none of these things inherently exist, but still exist subjectively, is the way to freedom, is the way to nirvana, is the way to understanding that all of these things are at peace at all times because they're empty of inherent existence. And what does empty of inherent existence mean? It doesn't mean they don't exist. It means they don't exist the way that we normally think that they do. How do we normally think that they do? We normally think that everything inherently exists right within the object, objectively exists, or intrinsically exists. This is the way that we normally think that they exist. How do they actually exist? Through dependent origination. Because they exist through dependent origination, this proves that they don't inherently exist. So, but dependent origination proves that they exist. This is what we need to figure out. The dependent origination proves that they exist and that they don't inherently exist. And so we see that that's the fine line we're trying to walk on. They don't inherently exist, but they exist because of dependent origination. They don't inherently exist because of dependent origination. This is the middle. It's this puzzle we have to figure out. And I'll say it again. They exist because of dependent origination. They don't inherently exist because of dependent origination. Dependent origination has three levels: dependent origination of causes and condition, dependent origination of collections, wholes and parts, and dependent origination of designation, thought designation, mere imputation. And what are you merely imputating onto? Of dependent origination, collections, parts, impermanent things, causes, conditions, cause and effect, impermanent, dependent origination of cause and effect, dependent origination of wholes and parts, dependent origination of designating. What are you designating? You're designating, your thought consciousness is designating on bases. What are the, of designation? What are those bases of designation? Wholes and parts and causes and conditions. But the most subtle understanding of dependent origination that the Prasangika view it has is that this dependent origination at its final level is this thought designation. And that's why it exists. Because I, through valid cognition, establish it. And I'm correctly establishing it within my sphere through a valid cognition in terms of conventional reality. Okay, that's enough. Let's read the Heart Sutra. And if we don't know what all of that means, we won't be able to understand the Heart Sutra. So we have to be able to get our minds calm enough to be able to look at this information, and smart enough to know what this information is that we need to look at. And this isn't something we're going to just get tonight or next week, unless we're really, really super skilled and have these imprints from a previous life that are just spectacularly powerful and allow us just to link with, some sort of under consequence and syllogism that just brightens our mind back to where we were practicing before. But usually, like beings in my case, it requires just effort, ongoing effort of trying to get my mind calmer and trying to get my mind smarter. And the only way I can do that is through meditation and study. And then, meditating on what I've studied. And hopefully we're all doing this, and not just a couple times a week, thinking that will transform your mind. This is really something you have to do on a daily basis, and this is information that I hope, whenever you can have it kind of pop up, and I hope it pops up more and more and more every day in your mind, you can apply it to your day and use that moment that you're dwelling in to evolve. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, the sutra that teaches the explicit truth of the ultimate truth, the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena, explicitly and implicitly teaches the 5 paths: the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way, he saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then through the power of the mind, then through the power of the Buddha's mind, actually, in parentheses, looking at the commentary, it's funny, I'm thinking about this while I'm reading it. So that's a good thing, but maybe not so good if I'm the one who's supposed to be reading it. Then through the power of the Buddha blesses Shariputra with his mind, and makes Shariputra, and then blesses Avalokiteshvara with his mind and makes them puppets, who then perform a show for us and to understand emptiness. Then through the power of the Buddha, through the power of the Buddha's mind, blessing of the Buddha's mind, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity and no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra of a great the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gate gate paragate parasangati buddhisoha. 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 Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world, its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Aga samaraja chandara samaraya vedi ata om gati gati paragati parasangati badiso papa conci sonci gai dembi doji she lubo doji mebo doji shewa doji jagi baji medubi oji shedin gori so gere indo jaji je shewa da midun be janda wa da dum baji jin bozon zo joji daji de janda na le de sho. We'll make a mandala offering. And this is as a request for teaching. Remember, mandala offerings we can do in various ways. mandala offerings as a beautiful offering as we're doing 7 limb prayers to the Buddhas, Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, the merit field. Mandala offerings that are requests for teachings, mandala offerings that are thanksgivings for teachings. So we can use this as a grand offering, as saying, oh, please present the teaching. Here's a gift. Oh, thank you for giving the teaching. Here's a gift. Oh, Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas. Here's a really incredible gift. So these are how this is how we use mandala offerings. In various ways we can use mandala offerings, and we can do them very subtle things as well. But let's just think of it in these terms, where these are things we can actually really do. At any time we want to, make this magnificent offering to the merit field. We can do this. We're having a kind of a hard day. We can just relate to the merit field and we can make this magnificent offering. It doesn't have to be just during specific times. We can just use this anytime to just say, oh, I'm going to just offer this we're really having a hard day. This universe isn't so good. Let me transform it and offer it to the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas so that I'll be able to make it so that I'm the most reliable guide in the universe, and I can teach sentient beings how to evolve, or they can teach me how to evolve, whatever happens first in this equation, so that we can all really live in this perfect place where there isn't suffering, where there isn't this horribleness. So we start to have like a horribleness kind of day. We can transform it by saying, man, this wouldn't be happening if I didn't have self-grasping ignorance, self-cherishing attitude, afflictive obstructions, obstructions to omniscience. How do I get rid of these things? I connect with my Lama. I connect with the merit field. How do I make it so I don't have this? How do I make it so this person who I'm having a hard time with, they're disturbed, their mind's disturbed too. How do I make it so they don't have that? I connect with the Lama, who's the source of all my good. What's a beautiful way to connect with them? Give them a gift. Give them a beautiful gift. Stop your day and give your Lama a beautiful gift. Like this. Give Khyentse Geshe Wandak, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, a beautiful gift. The whole merit field, a beautiful gift. And see if you come out of that experience as agitated. Try it. These are tools we don't just use as some sort of like ritual. And then they just become a ritual. I'm not even sure. I'm not sure. And you know what I mean? I'm just not sure. I'm not sure what you're pointing at, or if you're pointing at anything. Because can I just pick up this stool and wave it around? And that's my practice? Why? Because it's not shaped like something right? You got to think about it. What are we doing? What are we really doing? I bought this thing, Bell and Dorje. I'm swinging it around, and this is somehow all I need to do. Go ga 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 ga, and that's it. So if I swing a stool around and just speak in tongues, is this gonna work? Not saying that's what's happening, but is it? Could it be? Could, as great masters say, could there be abbots of a monastery that aren't Buddhist? I'm not downing abbots of monastery. I'm just saying we really have to check whether we're practicing or not. And what we're doing is something that will make us evolve. That's all I'm saying. And again, my comment is in the book. I was not making that comment. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Okay, so here we see the second part of the mandala offering is this request for teaching. And now we'll do the prayer of refuge in bodhicitta. And I'm going to do it in Tibetan. Sanje jadan zaji janan la janju badu dani jasuchi dagi juji jipe zonanji drola benja sanje juba sho. Sanje jadan zaji janan la janju badu dani jasuchi dagi juji jipe zonanji drola benja sanje juba sho. Sanje jadan zaji janan la janju badu dani jasuchi dagi juji jipe zonanji drola benja sanje juba sho. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to the samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there's grasping, you do not have the view. Lama Tsongkhapa, source of all my good. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teachings. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I'm not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. Grant me that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I practice well the path shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect deeds the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest of door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then always to keep them, even if it costs my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself the one who holds the diamond. So we're so fortunate to be looking at this text by Lama Tsongkhapa and Pabunka Rinpoche's beautiful commentary that breaks this down into the 4 categories of the very root of the path, how to take on and serve, take on a Lama and serve him or her properly, dealing with the first stanza, how to train your mind once you've taken on a Lama, dealing with stanzas 2 through 12, or quests so that you can attain all the favorable conditions for succeeding in the past and stop all the circumstances that might prevent you from doing so, dealing with stanza 13, and then finally a prayer that in all your future lives you can be under the care of a Lama, and so you can gain the strength to find to reach the final end of the various levels and paths. And we see right from the very beginning of this text how important it is for us to be able to calm our minds down. We're now on the stanza that's after the 3 moralities that deals with calm abiding and special insight. Grant that I may gain quickly the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. So in the following weeks, we'll go more into what this means. But we see how important it is to have our minds become more and more and more calm right in the 2nd stanza, because it says, grant me to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. So that's meaning night and day, that's every moment. How could you possibly take the essence of this life? How could you extract that if your mind wasn't calm? No way, right? No chance. So we see that the calmer your mind is, the better you're going to be at doing all of the Buddhist stages of the path. So even though we find calm abiding and special insight, and we find the kind of fancier explanations of how to direct our mind at an object later in the Lam Rimchemo, the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, we certainly find an explanation right in the beginning on how to get start to meditate and how to abandon obstacles of meditation, of excitement and dullness and so forth, and how to use analytical meditation. So we see an introduction right in the meditation session, and getting rid of misconceptions about meditation right in the beginning of Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And that is for a specific reason, that all of these are instructions for practice. All of these are meditation topics. All of these things are things we need to realize. We need to realize guru devotion. We need to realize day and night that the source of all of our good is a teacher, is our teacher who's inseparable from the Buddha when we get to the later stages. So we have to be able to day and night do that. So be able to really realize guru devotion, we have to have a calm mind. To be able to realize life and leisure and opportunity, to wake up in the morning and have the first thing we think about is, oh, let's practice. We need a life, we have this da-da-da-da-da. We need a calm mind that in the moment of waking was kind of led there by the calm mind of our dream state that allows us to then wake up virtuously. So it's really, if we can go to bed with a calm mind and focus our mind on virtue, it says that our mind is virtuous all the way through, and then our waking mind can connect with the mind that we set motivation with before we went to bed. So that there's this continuous practice that's taking place, a continuous mindfulness. What is mindfulness? Not forgetting the object, not forgetting the source of all my good is my teacher. I have these 8 leisures. I have among some of the 10 opportunities, at least inarguably. I don't want to forget I'm going to die, though. Death will come, nothing can stop it. I don't know when, and the only thing that can help is Dharma. I've got to be able to, I want to not forget that. The only way I'm not going to forget that is if my mind is calm. Mindfulness is going to forget. If you don't have a firm mindfulness, you're going to forget the object. Mindfulness is trying to hold the object, trying to day and night know that these topics are what should be the way my mind actually works. Knowing that what those deeds will bring to me follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Virtue I do causes happiness. Non-virtue I do causes suffering. Contaminated virtues still cause cyclic existence. I have to see emptiness in order to uncontaminate my virtues. I have to try to have a calm enough mind to understand this in the midst of every moment. And that's how bodhisattvas work. And that's why as your mind gets better and better, you have more skill set. That's why in the 3 moralities, you first get really good at working at your own ethics and so forth. And then you work on, gathering virtue, and then you work on working for sentient beings. And in terms of emphasis, because you have now, your mind is calmer and your mind is, more readily available for others. More readily available in every moment for others, not distracted towards our own whims and ideas. A bodhisattva can't possibly have bodhicitta without calm abiding. I mean, come on. Having this ideal in every moment for others. You can't possibly have renunciation without calm abiding. Having this ideal in every moment that you want to get out of cyclic existence. So this stuff is to practice, folks. This isn't just information to stack up so you sound smart somewhere talking about it. Really, it's of no use. There's things that, sound even smarter to talk about if you're trying to do that. and will appeal to a lot more people, and a lot more people will think you're really smart. Quantum physics, quantum mechanics, alternate universes, talk about those things, neuro pathways, which all plays into this. It shows you your mind can create pathways in a brain, and there's something separate there going on. But that's, this material is material that you're trying to use to evolve into Buddhahood as quickly as possible. That's it. It's no use like reading it, unless it's not for that, like the masters tell us. Each word is an instruction for practice. That's it. That's the Buddha's intent. Practice this word and that word and that word, and you'll see how to engage in ripening and liberating paths. So we're going to learn about getting our minds calmer. We're going to learn about the stages of shamatha. We're going to learn about faults. We're going to learn about all the things that we kind of need to do to be able to get to a state of calm abiding, so that then we can unite it with special insight. Special insight's a very specific topic, and you'll have a very specific object of calm abiding when you have this uniting going on, and it'll be the emptiness. But we get a skill together through various means and various objects that are personal to us to get this calm abiding, to be able to unite with special insight. But the special insight is arrived at through this analysis, through wisdom arisen from hearing and analysis in meditation on the objects of observation of emptiness of inherent existence. So pretty important. If nothing really good comes from a distracted mind, according to Shantideva, then that's a problem. And if you can't see emptiness without calm abiding, then that's a problem, because Shantideva said that seeing emptiness is the only way to freedom. So what else is there to do? And if you can't become free without seeing emptiness, and you can't see emptiness without a union of calm abiding and special insight, in the sutra tradition, you have to, you have to, we'll just leave it at that. Without this union of calm abiding and special insight, that's developed in separate kind of streams, and then, and then united. Yeah. So we'll leave it at that for tonight. It's pretty important. If it's the only way to freedom, according to Shantideva, is to see emptiness. You can't see emptiness without a calm mind. We better figure out how to get a calm mind. And if, according to the masters, if we can't really do anything good in terms of accumulating virtue in each moment without a calm mind, we should probably learn how to get a calm mind, because we need the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom, those two, to become Buddhas. So we got to do it. We don't have a choice. Got to do it now or do it later. But if we start doing it now, we're sure that we have the material that we need to do it. Doing it later, who knows what could happen even in our lifetime here as humans. Maybe there's something just drastically horrible happens in 2 weeks, and I'll bet you will have wished you spent those 2 weeks figuring out how to make those moments matter. Because we don't know. Death will come and nothing can stop, and we don't know when. So what if you don't know what that gap of time is, and it could be tomorrow. If it's tomorrow, you're going to wish you had done something with that gap better than what you would do if you weren't trying to engage in Dharma practice, because you'd be closer to an ability to do something with that last moment, where that is going to be the deciding factor on where you go in life, your next life. It's right there. You got a little window. You're dying, if you're in that process where you can have that window, and then it's going to ignite something from your consciousness. Some sort of thing's going to ignite, and a craving and grasping is going to happen, and that's going to make that seed ready to throw you into a rebirth. And we've got to, if that's coming anytime soon, we should make sure we're ready. And the way we get ready is making each of our moments matter, because that's headed there. And if we're attached to this life, we're not a spiritual practitioner. And what does that even mean? It means that we're going to die. This is already kind of pre-baked, all these experiences that we're having, and that we're really accumulating things to try to have that window at death work out for us. So what we're doing with our spiritual practice doesn't have to do with this life per se, if that makes sense, because this life is just going to go away and it's like a blip on the radar. But what we do with this life, if we're only focused on this life, when we get to that time of death, we're going to crave and grasp everything in this life. But if we've practiced in order to be ready for that moment, then we won't be scared and screaming and crying and loathing and wanting to be so anywhere else but there. We'll be ready, and we'll know that, oh, this is exactly what we've been preparing for. We're just, changing hotels, as Rinpoche would say. Oh, this is what recently I heard Jeffrey Hopkins talking about being in the room with a great Geshe, a retired abbot who was dying of liver cancer, and he was in the room with His Holiness, and His Holiness just looked at him and said, "We're monks, we know how to die." That's incredible oral instruction right there. Sometimes you just need that to shake you. And it really, I've ever since I heard this teacher say this on a video, I it's shaken me a lot, and not that I don't practice death and impermanence regularly. It's just these little things just kind of shake us. And I've heard stories personally very, very similar, but this is just one I heard almost identical. This is one that I've heard recently from a great being, from Jeffrey Hopkins on a video. Prayer for the flourishing of Jitsong Kappa's teachings. Though he's the father producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view, free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation, cleansed of dark, fading, and fog, his pure conduct, practiced according to the conqueror's orders, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned since he extensively sought out learning, reverend, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating all for beings and doctrine, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to the explanations of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three trainings, he is accomplished. His skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle, hard essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the three beings past, the quick-acting Lord, by Shravana Karmayana, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Now we will do a mandala offering, Thanksgiving mandala offering. Thank you, Kensur Geshe Wandak, for being so generous with the Dharma and giving me something to actually say that matters, as opposed to all the things that I used to say before I met you that didn't matter in the least. Although they sounded nice sometimes, they mattered not. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. And again, I just want to thank Kensur Geshe Wandak for coming into this world and sharing this pure Dharma with us and introducing us to all these great masters and the Nalanda Pandits, and reassuring us that we needed to keep studying with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and he was the true jewel, Chen Rezig, in our world. And I just am so grateful for this instruction and for this, just seamless instruction about the Lam Rim that he gave us. Any mistakes that I've made, because it's very difficult to walk in the shoes of such a giant, that I could, use one of his shoes as a home. It's difficult to try to even begin to put those shoes on, but because he asked me to, and because I have confidence in what he told me, and I have confidence that I don't express things that aren't right from the Lam Rim, and aren't things that he didn't tell me. I didn't make things up. I have confidence in this teaching tonight. But any mistakes that I did make because I'm not as qualified as Kensur Geshe Wandak, I admit them now, if I made them unknowingly. And may they be purified by this mantra of Vajrasattva, imagining Vajrasattva in the front generation, inseparable from your root Lama, now inseparable from Kensur Geshe Wandak in my case, and imagining that there's a shower of rain, of lights and nectars raining down on you and all sentient beings that are turning into white red and blue light rays and nectars, and transforming into white homes, red Oz, blue homes, and purifying ours and all sentient beings, body, speech, and mind, respectively. White homes purifying body, red Oz purifying speech, blue homes purifying mind. Om benza sata samayam and Ibalaya benza sata zena vajita dita meva zudagai meva subugai meva and rag meva sabazini made bread just avakam sucha make item chigan kuruhum ha ha ho bhagavan sarva tatakata benza mame benza bava maha samaya sapa home fe. May we always be protected by Paul the Lamo, Rama 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 Jinjakalar Rama Jinjo, Rama 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 Jinjakalar Rama Jinjo, 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 Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Jo Rama Junjo Kalaraja Mo Rama Jadaja Junjo Jo. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Many obstacles that you have to receiving the Dharma be removed through the power of the mantra of Drapasunje. Om Vajrapani Haya Griva Garuda Home Ve. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. A prayer of supplication to Namgyo Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, called the Yogi, Complex Yogi, poses as a simple monk by myself, written on March 6, 2023, 1 year after Rinpoche's passing from this world. But we know that he's always right here. And anytime that we call a holy being, they appear. We just can't see them because of our karma. So Rinpoche is always here with us, manifesting, and the Dharmakaya is always present, pervading all phenomena. Homage to Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food and music purified by Om Ahom. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed a complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears. It elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Sorry I went a little bit over. I apologize. I'm just so grateful to have this opportunity to talk about stuff that really does matter to me, and that I do try to apply to my life in the best of my ability. And I hope that you do too. And please, rely on authoritative texts, and don't be satisfied with partial instructions. Thank you. See you on Sunday for Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye-bye.